United Methodist Church to lead us in prayer, and we'll follow that with the pledge. Please join us.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we give thanks to you for the blessing of being a part of this community, and we pray your blessing tonight over this body, that you would grant them wisdom to lead this community with a spirit of unity and hope. For we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. All right, before we move on to item 2, I am
Oh, Lord.
Councilman Howard. Before I move on to item 2, I'd like to recognize our honored guests here today, the entire county commission, the county commission chair, and our county manager as well. Would you please stand? And Commissioner Ornstein's wife.
Are they bearing gifts?
The gift of their presence. Thank you guys for coming.
They came for you, $50.
Item 2, the approval of the minutes. Council's had time to review the minutes from the August 11th regular meeting. Are there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on. Approve that by acclamation. We'll move on to the first public hearing item. Consideration of an ordinance to adopt the tax millage rate for the city of Valdosta. This will be the third reading. First reading was on Wednesday at noon. Second reading was this past Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Mark Barber, our city manager, will present third reading.
Thank you, Mayor Matheson. Good evening, Council. As the mayor did state, this is our third required hearing. When the state says that there is a possibility of property tax increase, but we've talked about in our first 2 hearings how that's really not absolutely the case when you get down and you understand the code when it pertains to that. So I'm going to let Teresa work the slides for me this evening. Just again, a reminder, I know you guys know this, but for our audience, and I know these slides are hard to see tonight, but ad valorem taxes are used to fund the expenses in the general fund, and those are the biggest expenditures there, police, fire. They can't be commingled with the other funds of the city, such as water, sewer, anything like that. So this is why property tax is one of our larger items in our general fund area. So just to give you an update on that. This slide, again, I know is hard to see, but this is the results of our property tax digest. As we discussed in the other hearings, our net growth on this page, it represents 6.3% in net growth. And as we've discussed previously, this is where we generate, when you apply your millage rate, this is where you generate your revenue for your ad valorem tax. So again, it's great that we did grow 6.3% in total. However, $53 million of that is reassessment growth. That is when your neighborhood, the assessors go out, reassess your neighborhood. Perhaps you did nothing to your home, but they reassess your neighborhood because of market conditions and things of that nature. So, as the state of Georgia, if you keep that growth and don't roll that back in the form of a mill, the state of Georgia considers that a backdoor tax increase. We've discussed the ramifications of that. The good point is our tax digest did grow $49.8 million in what I like to call real growth of new development, folks doing things in additions to their property. That's why this is important. At budget, we always talk about what do we need. We need this property tax digest to grow. And so again, if you remember when we do budget, we don't have this information before us, so we give it our best shot. And as we've seen, we were fairly close during our budget deliberations. Okay, what staff is asking, what staff is requesting of Mayor and Council is simply this. Our current millage rate is 7.796. We don't want to increase that. We're asking for the same millage rate, and we want to apply it to that growth on the previous slide I just talked about. So we're not talking about increasing the millage rate, we're just wanting to keep our current millage rate at 7.796. So what this slide does, this gives you a comparison to, if we keep the current millage rate at 7.96, how it ties into the budget that you guys adopted in June. Keeping the millage rate at 7.796 does fund our general fund budget in the area that, in the line item of property tax, with a little cushion of about $385,000. Why that's important is we know we never collect 100% of property tax. So we always build an uncollectible rate in there. The rate we've got built in is 2%. We've seen it at 4%. But we, for these purposes, we kept it at 2%. So, and in both scenarios, that's 7.796 current. Now, as I just said, the state of Georgia wants you to roll back that reassessment growth. So if you do that, you put that in the form of a mill, that's 0.256 of a mill, and simply what the calculation is, 7.796 current rate minus 2.56 for reassessment growth, and you get a rollback rate of 7.542. Okay? So apply the same parameters, the same calculations of that to our budget, and with the collectability built in of 98%, we're $20,000 short compared to what you guys approved in the budget. So this is, I think this is always a good slide for you guys to see, so you can see how it lines up with the budget. Because, again, the current rate, maintaining the current rate, meets that need for us. Any questions on that slide? And we're just going to skip this right. This is our 5-year history that you have to publish in the paper regardless of whether it's a property tax increase or not. And I just like to show this because this shows over the years, we started in 2017 at 8.0010, and we've consistently went downward. So it's not something we take lightly. When we're considering these, we only ask truly what we need to fund that budget, and I think that's a great example of that. And this shows it better, just a simple little line graph. You can kind of tell we did go up in 2020, but since that point in time, drop off, and we've been pretty much steady the whole time. Okay, Teresa? I think this is the best illustration right here of what we're talking about. This is a sample of different property values. And I'll just go with that real quick. I know we went twice, but I'll go real quickly with it. Let's just start at the $50,000 piece of property. As we discussed, state of Georgia taxes that at 40%. So the 40% tax value of that $50,000 piece of property is $20,000. And what we do, we know there's all kind of exemptions out there other than homestead, but for make calculations simple, we just claim the $6,000 homestead exemption. We don't know about, veteran, senior, that type of thing. So based on that taxable value of that $50,000 piece of property is now $14,000. So if you apply that 7.542 millage rate that we were just speaking of, your tax bill for the city of Valdosta will be $105.59, the city's portion. If you maintain the current millage rate of 7.796, that bill will be $109.14. So for the year, it's a difference of $3.55. But if you maintain the current millage rate compared to the suggested rollback rate. Well, again, I'm not diminishing anybody's budget, $355 for the year. I'm not saying that's not a big deal. I'm just saying, as it's not awful. And it means a lot to the city because as you consolidate and get more of those, then that's how we get to be able to fund our budget accordingly. So a penny a day for a $50,000 piece of property. And it pretty much goes up percentage-wise. 100,000 is 2 cents a day if you want to go down to that level. But here's the good thing. The thing with maintaining the current millage rate is this. If you had nothing at your property, you had no reassessment growth, or you did nothing that added to the value of your home, all we're going to do is apply the same millage rate, so your tax bill will be what it was last year. questions on that? Just go to the next one. Go to the next slide. I'm going to go back to that one. So I'll get a lot of questions on this. Folks that live in Valdosta think they just pay City of Valdosta property taxes. So I always like to show this slide to say, no, you pay other taxes as well. So the Valdosta City School System, their millage rate this year is 15.787% of your tax bill, which represents about 46.7% of your property tax bill. Lowndes County is 7.961, which represents about 23.6% of the bill. City of Valdosta, and I put tentative, depending on your decision this evening, is 7.796, which is 23%. Recreation Authority is paid with a countywide tax of $1.25, which represents 3.7%, and then the Industrial Authority of Mill, which represents 30%. So if you're a City of Valdosta resident, you'll be paying you'll have a total millage rate of all the entities together of 33.794. And then go back to that. And then I always like to end with a dollar. Here's a dollar, and here's how the property tax is broken out on that property tax dollar. Same percents I just talked about. We just like to play with a little dollar graph to show it in that way as well. So again, we're requesting that Mayor and Council consider keeping the millage rate as it currently is at 7.796. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have or the audience may have.
Council, any questions for Mark?
Mr. Barber, only because I don't see it in my packet, we also need to adopt the school and the downtown.
Well, I'll do that when we get to the part where you'll have to adopt. This is just the hearing part.
Okay.
I'll talk about that when we go to adopt.
Any other questions for Mark? Mark, thank you. Again, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to item B again, consideration of a request to close a portion of Riverside Road for the construction of a new mixed-use development. Ben O'Dowd, our city engineer, to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll begin with a brief summary. The initial request was originally brought before our office by Steve Miller on June 29th, 2022, who was working on behalf of Traverse Payne III. The proposed closure is being made to accommodate a mixed-use commercial residential development in the area. If you're familiar, Riverside Road is a road that tees into James Road, and Riverside Road lies partially within the city of Valdosta and Lowndes County. The portion of the road which is being petitioned for closure is the portion which lies within the city. And there should be an exhibit in your packet which depicts that portion. That's a good one. As you can see, that's the mixed-use development. Again, that was a preliminary concept plan that was submitted with the rezoning. The rezoning was not concept plan specific. In accordance with our standard procedures for a road closure request, we sent the information that we had available to us to all of the city departments, requested comment or concerns. The only comment that we got was from the zoning department, who recommended that we request more information from the VLMPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's a joint organization between Valdosta and Lowndes County. They may have had some insight as to whether or not this would impact any current or future transportation plans. We reached out to them, and they notified us that it would not impact any plans. No additional departmental comments were received. There are no utilities which lie within this right-of-way, to our knowledge. The applicant followed all of the required public notifications, all of the required mailings, all of the procedural requirements were followed to a T. Given the procedural requirements were all followed and no departments had any major comments, our staff recommend approval for this. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions for Ben?
I have a question. You mainly recommend approval because of the reason is they just met all the requirements?
Correct.
Okay, so, but any opposition, none of that had any impact of, from other residents or the people in the area who will be living there? Was any of that taken into consideration?
To my knowledge, there was some concern from citizens about increased traffic on Hunter McCormick. I believe the applicant's representation will be here tonight and may be able to expound a little bit more on that.
Okay.
But from an engineering and departmental standpoint, we see no reason, or we have no reason to recommend denial. I guess that would be a better way to.
Okay, but I ask this question. Do you see any reason to close it?
In favor of the development, if I was the developer, yes, in order to develop this property. But again, that's from a departmental standpoint, I don't see any reason to deny the closure.
Because they've met all the...
They've met all the
what we-
procedural requirements. One of the main procedural requirements is that 70% of the landowners, I believe 70% of the landowners on either side of the road to be closed must sign a petition, and there is one single property owner on either side of this road
Thank
who is
you.
in favor of the closure.
My question is, did you look anywhere else that you didn't have to even come near this road? Were there any more property in that area that you could have placed another road at? Did you look anywhere else besides that area?
I'm not the developer, so I have not explored other alternatives, no.
Any other questions for Ben? Ben, thank you.
Yeah.
Again, this is a public hearing. I'm going to offer 15 minutes to each side tonight. It'll be 15 minutes to speak in favor of the request for closure. I'm going to try and clarify that, so if there's anybody that would like to come forward and speak in favor of the request for closure, please do so now. And Teresa, please start the time.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Bill Nigem, 1007 North Patterson Street. Before I begin, I want to hand around some aerial photographs that I think will clarify a little more about what portion of the road is being closed and show the relationship to some of the houses that are south of there, and also a traffic pattern as well. They have given y'all my copies, so. So just to be clear, this is just a portion of Riverside Road that's going to be closed. It's the portion that hits James Road at the north and runs all the way down to the city-county line at the south. The petitioner is the sole owner of the property on both sides of the portion of the road that's petitioned to be closed. There are no homes or utilities along this portion of Riverside Road other than one rental property that is owned by the petitioner. And obviously when this property is developed, that home will be raised or moved. If you look at your standard for closing a road, that's an ordinance, and it's also state law. And the standard says that a road may be closed upon the determination that the street has ceased to be used by the public to the extent no substantial purpose is served by it. Substantial purpose is the imperative phrase there. Or that its removal from the municipal road system is otherwise in the best public interest. So why close this portion of Riverside Road? Matt Inman, who is a project engineer, he's here tonight. We set up some traffic cameras to determine traffic patterns on this portion of the road. Data that came back showed that there were between 16 and 17 vehicles per day that used this portion of Riverside Road. That's approximately one vehicle every 90 minutes. That is not a substantial use, okay? There were actually about 5 more cars that use that road. Those were determined to be the tenant of the property that's on the petitioner's land. So if you back those out, it was between 16 and 17 cars a day on average, okay? And I believe that traffic monitoring system stayed out there for multiple weeks. So that's the first point I want to make, that there's not much traffic that utilizes this portion of Riverside Road. Now, there's a reason for that. Because if you look on that aerial that I showed you, most of the houses are south of this portion of Riverside Road, and what they're going to do if they're traveling from the north to the south, very easily use the paved road that their houses are on, which is Hunter McCormick Road. Okay, so it's just a matter of traveling an additional distance to make a right on Hunter McCormick, which is paved, to get to their homes. The other reason is because you're not really going to use this portion of Riverside Road to travel north from Hunter McCormick onto James Road, because you cannot turn north onto James Road from this portion of Riverside Road, because there is a concrete median there that prevents you from doing that. So there's no reason that these houses to the south would utilize this portion of Riverside Road to travel north, and really no reason they need to use them to travel south on James Road either, because they can just go out Hunter McCormick. Okay? So that's why your traffic count's so low. It's not a cut-through. Probably, and some questions came up about this earlier to the city engineer, but it just makes planning sense to close this. It facilitates the development of the property as a master plan community. Y'all, of course, are familiar with the rezoning we just went through back in June. And, you know, the plans are for this to be a master plan community with interior road systems and frontage all as one parcel. And you just can't do that when you have a dirt road that cuts straight through the center of the property. So, also, keeping this road open will increase the traffic to the south on Riverside Drive and Hunter McCormick Road, because if you keep this road open and development is done around it, residents are there are going to be access points possibly onto this road, and residents are going to use this portion of Riverside Road to travel south, get on Hunter McCormick, and go out to James Road if they want to go south. So if you kept it open, I think there's a very likely, a very strong argument that it would increase traffic on Hunter McCormick Road, because you'll have a 200 lot subdivision that are going to have residents that want to travel south that utilize Riverside Road and Hunter McCormick to access James Road and go south. I will say that I have had some discussions with county staff. That was one of their main concerns, was that was the traffic, and they wanted some assurance that, you know, the subdivision, the proposed subdivision, wouldn't increase traffic on Hunter McCormick Road. And that is one of the very reasons this portion of Riverside Road is sought to be closed, because there will be no access point to the south onto Riverside Drive, the remaining part of Riverside Road, or to Hunter McCormick. I know there have been some concerns raised, I think, from residents about fire safety, and that somehow closing this portion of Riverside Road would somehow impact fire safety for, you know, these county residents that are along Hunter McCormick Road and the remaining portion of Riverside Road to the south that's in the county. Personally, I don't see how that can be the case just by closing a 15-foot wide portion of a dirt road would impact that. I did a quick Google search, and I hope this is correct. I believe there's a volunteer fire department on West Side Drive across from the school. I would think that if there are any fire safety issues along Hunter McCormick Road or Riverside Road in the county, firefighters would be dispatched from that fire department, would go up James Road, would hang a left on Hunter McCormick Road, and be right there to service the county residents that are along Hunter McCormick. So I'm not really following how closing this portion of Riverside Drive in the city would impact fire safety for those residents. I will also say that fire safety is a permitting issue. As we get further through with development plans, this process with the city, the developer and the landowner are going to listen, of course, to all fire safety requirements that the city fire director may have. If that means having a knockdown gate or a controlled access gate at the southernmost point of the county city line, so emergency vehicles could get in and access the neighborhood on the back end that way. Of course, that's something they will have to do if the city requires it in permitting. But to the extent there are fire safety issues, I don't know if this is the forum for that, because it would be addressed by county fire safety, and I know county commissioners are here, and a lot of the county staff is here. But I would just say we ask that you follow the recommendation of staff, follow the language of the ordinance and the statute. I mean, it is in the best public interest to close this portion of Riverside Road. It's going to facilitate a development that's going to bring an increased tax base to the city. It's going to bring an increased utilities usage to the city and revenue to the city. And it's going to develop property in an area that is ready for development. And a lot of money has been put into with infrastructure to prepare for a development of this type. So I'm happy to answer any other questions. The project engineer is here to answer questions if we need to have questions for him.
Council, any questions for Mr. Nigel?
I have a question, Mr. Nigel.
Yes, ma'am.
I do know that you did more studies, so you did recent studies with that where you were doing this in area view this was done kind of recently, or had you done this, when was this done?
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Tooley, I guess, are you looking at the traffic diagram?
Yes, this area.
Okay, that was done by the project engineer, and that was done probably a month ago in preparation for this. I mean, and that just shows the median along James Road and how, anybody coming out of Riverside Road right there in James Road, you can't go north because of that median. So, that car would have to travel back down south, do a U-turn, and come back to travel north. So,
did the developers even consider moving that medium out the way?
No, there's been, and I don't even know if that's a possibility. I mean, it probably makes more sense, and I believe the development plans would be to true up the entrance of the subdivision to James Circle, which is north of that median and further north. So if you look, I don't know if you, I'm looking at the site plan, the proposed site plan in front of me here. It's up on the screen. But you can see how the road that's proposed to be put in would be directly across from the James Circle intersection. And so that would sort of shore everything up there.
That's a little further north, what you were talking about.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a little further north. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Nigel, you said you did a study of the cars that come in that area, correct?
I did not do the study. The project engineer did,
Okay,
yes.
did the city do a study also?
I'm not aware that the city
It's
did.
going on your study.
Yes, ma'am. That is
That's it. That's
the
all.
petitioner study. Mm-hmm.
Question, Council?
Sir, when is the estimated time to start breaking ground on this project?
Oh, that's a good question. If we can get through these approvals, there's going to be a period of title review, financing, all those contingencies and conditions. I mean, if I can't tell you, if I had to make an educated guess, I would say within the next 9 to 12 months.
Would you have any opposition to waiting until the council member is appointed in November so the people who represent that area will have a representative? Would you have a problem tabling this until the person who will represent that area is appointed?
I believe that would be a problem. I mean, it would throw off the timeline of events here and everything. I mean, currently, there's a contract for the sale of the property, and I don't know how much longer the seller is going to be willing to wait to do that. So, the time is right. I mean, I understand these community members. I mean, there is a councilman here that I understand that represents that district. So I think that would definitely throw a wrench in things from a timing perspective.
So my next question was, when this project was first presented, did anyone from the community have any objections?
When the road abandonment was presented, or the reason?
The project was first presented as far as the zoning to allow this project to take place.
Y'all would know as well as I do, because if there was any objection, it was in the public forum here in the city council meeting. But I mean, I am aware of Pastor Morgan, who I believe is here tonight, and I've met with him. We've talked a number of occasions. I know that Pastor Morgan did come up during the rezoning process and make a few comments. I don't think there are any objections with the rezoning. I'm sure you're going to hear from some of those community members tonight about this road abandonment.
You seem like a very good man. I'm going to ask you this question from my heart. Did anyone go and talk to the residents to see how they felt about this project being brought in that area? Just out of courtesy.
No, yeah, that was a good question. Thank you. I have talked to Pastor Morgan.
Besides Pastor Morgan, the people that he's not the only one who live out there.
I know he's not. I do know that, and I have always thought of Pastor Morgan as a community leader out there, and so he's always been the point of contact for me.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
yes.
We're going to have to wrap that up. That'll be the last question. 15 minutes is up for those speaking in favor of closure. Thank you.
He said it's the last question.
No, that was it. Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
But that was just 15 minutes for him to speak. I thought we could have time to ask him questions on it.
Come on back up.
So, I know it just seemed... Well, no, I'm just looking at the procedure of it. I know he has 15 minutes to speak on his time or whatever, and I just know we can ask more questions if we have some. And my thing was when you was looking at it and you was talking about when he mentioned something about the contract, it just came up to me when you said something about there was a contract in the time frame. This was withdrawn a few weeks back. Could you just tell me, do you know particularly what was the cause for having it to be withdrawn?
Well, I think that's a good question. It was my understanding that there was a large majority and a large number of council members that were not going to be here for that meeting. And so I wanted to be here at a meeting with all the council members to hear this. So that's why.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
That's it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second half of this will be 15 minutes for anybody that would like to speak in opposition of this road closure. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm William C. Morgan, 2181 Smith Street in Lowndes County. The issue here tonight is not so much can that road be closed, but the issue is should it be closed. This is a bad idea to close Riverside Road. But before I continue, I'd like the representatives from the Jones community to stand and River Hill community. Thank you so very much. Let me begin by saying that Riverside Road parallels James Road. For over 2 miles, it actually parallels James Road. Now, this is important simply because if there is a incident on James Road, the sheriff, the deputies can direct or reroute the motorists on Riverside Road. Yesterday, I was coming from the VA. I was on the interstate, and I thought about Highway 41. If anything happened on the interstate, thank God for Highway 41. I could still get home. If you look at exit 22 and exit 18 on the interstate, if anything happens between those exits, we have an alternative route, and that route is Valtech Road. That is an alternate. That is an auxiliary road so that motorists can get where they need to get to. To close Riverside Road, an alternate route, that is unheard of. Would you close 41? Would you close Valtech Road? And again, it's a bad idea. Secondly, it was mentioned about in case of emergency. Someone has mentioned that once that development is actually there, if there is an emergency, I believe he mentioned about there are 4 homes there on Riverside. If there is an emergency, well, say a fire. If there is a fire, yes, on West Side Road, there is a fire department. But they can ask for assistance from the city. If Riverside Road is closed, how are the city firemen going to assist? Someone mentioned that once the senior citizen development is there, that the fire department can take these big trucks, and I mean they are huge, lack of a better term, tankers, and sort of go through that maze in the senior citizen complex to get to Riverside Road. Once you get to Riverside Road, those big tankers cannot make a right. The road is too narrow. But if Riverside Road was open, then that assistance can be expedited quicker. So all we're saying is it's a bad idea to close this auxiliary road, Riverside Road. The other thing that I want to mention, the graphic is still here in front of us. Now, if this senior citizen development actually happens, and the reason I say if it actually happens, there was another development on this same property that fell through. What is to say this won't fall through? But let's say for instance, that it takes place. These are supposed to be senior citizen homes. We want to have an agreement. Now, we don't go against this project at all. From the very beginning, we said, okay, that's great. No opposition. But it's supposed to be homes. We want an agreement. We want a covenant that says that these homes cannot be turned to rental property within 20 years. Now, the promotion is that these are going to be homes for senior citizens. And in one meeting, I think it was either 55 or 60, that is great. That's what we've been waiting for. But now, once they are homes, we don't want them turned into rental property to bring down the value of other property. It's happened. It's happened in the city of Valdosta several times. We don't want that in the community. The last thing that I want to mention is about Hunter McCormick Road. If Riverside Road is closed, there is going to be a lot of traffic on Hunter McCormick Road coming from this development. Now that falls, if you decide tonight, and I hope you don't, to close Riverside Road, now that burden, that financial burden is going to be on the county, because Hunter McCormick Road right now cannot accommodate increased traffic. Drainage, new pavement, property may have to be purchased in order to get it up to specs. That falls on the county. And this is, the last thing I want to say here is this. Someone has said that the citizenry and their local government works together. That's what we learn in civics, middle school, high school, at the university, at the colleges, that they work together. Someone else said that's a fallacy. It doesn't work like that in real life. I have heard it. But we in the Jones community, as well as in the River Hill community, where Riverside Road is, we don't subscribe to that. We subscribe to there is cooperation between the citizenry and our local governments. And this is one decision tonight to verify that there is cooperation between the citizens and the local government, and between local governments. If the citizens are going to benefit, the city and the county has to work together. If the citizens are going to benefit, then one municipality cannot infringe on the other municipality. We're working as a team. I've heard of one Lowndes, one Valdosta. Well, let's see if that's true here tonight. The citizens of this faithful community, who does everything that you want them to do, they are saying this road is instrumental, this road historically in the community, we want it to stay. And Mr. Tim from the zoning, he was here, I don't know if he's here tonight, but he was here last time, and he said to City Council, he says, there's no reason to close Riverside Road. He stood right here and said, there's no reason to close it. All it takes is a little ingenuity, a little imagination, and Riverside Road can be an asset to the new development. And we say amen to that. You don't have to destroy in order to get what you want to do, but use what's already there in order to make what your plans better. These plans right here, they can be made better. They really can. And one way that they can be made better is to use the assets that are already there in the community. And one of the big assets is Riverside Road. Thank you so much.
I'll have to ask if there's anybody else that wants to speak. Come on up, please. Plenty of time.
Yes. My name is Daryl Dove. I live at 2829 Hunter McCormick Road. I live on the road that a lot of this debate is about. I can recall a few years ago we went through this when Willie Head sat up here and said, we're doing the wrong thing. Why are we doing this? Well, all I can hear, nobody knocked on my door and said, Mr. Dove or Mrs. Dove, how do you feel about this road being closed? My wife discussed all the time, we don't want it closed. Her cousins that live beside us, another house, and all up and down James Road, up and down Hunter McCormick, they don't want the road closed. It's dangerous to close that road. What's wrong with the developer paving the road? It's going to be in a development anyway. Pave it. We already have crazy traffic on Hunter McCormick Road, whether it's dirt or not, and putting some cameras out there for a few days, 30 days, 45 days, that's not a good measure of the traffic that's up and down that dirt road, because I sit out on my front porch, and I see the cars coming through Hunter McCormick and going up and down the dirt road. I heard somebody, the councilwoman, speak about the concrete barrier on James Road. When those cars come out of that development that's proposed, they're going to turn right and they're going to come up to Hunter McCormick Road, where you can't turn, there's no turnaround right there because the yellow lines go all the way up. They're going to turn onto Hunter McCormick Road, and they're going to either pull in our driveway or Wesley's driveway or Adriana's driveway or Claire Jean's driveway or Jackie's driveway to turn around. River Hill Missionary Baptist Church, the church I attend, is right there on James Road, 2884 James Road. We've been through trying to get that divider taken down. 15 years ago, 2008, 2009. And here we are again, going through the same thing. I heard an ugly comment back here earlier about those of us out on James Road. The gentleman sitting back there, I heard him. Oh, we're out here in the middle of, we're going out to the effect of out here in the middle of nowhere where things don't even matter. Well, I'm here to tell you that we do matter. It was you. We do matter on James Road. We matter on Hunter McCormick Road. If that's it, Mayor, I apologize if I was wrong.
Please address the council.
But we do matter. We do matter. And Sandra Tully, I thank you for your questions. Because yours are right on point. We do matter on Hunter McCormick, James Road, James River Road, all of them. Thank you. We matter.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council in opposition?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, County Commissioners, Jones Community, and everyone else, respective places. My name is Helen Morgan. I live on Mack Hill Drive, James Road, and Riverside Drive are west of me. And I'm here to try to get clarification of the gentleman who was up here. I forgot his name. He's in the second row to the left. I want to get clarification of a question he asked. I believe he said there is no reason why the road should not be closed. Is that what you said, sir? You asked a question. You said there is no reason why. And I didn't get the rest of it. But
Bill, if you want to come back up, you can.
Helen Morgan.
the first few words were there. You don't see, if, you know, there is no reason why, or there is no reason why. Was it why you think the road should not be closed? Is that what you were saying?
I think what I mentioned was the standard for closing the road, and that, you know, the standard is to the extent there's no substantial purpose is served by it. So what I probably said, if I remember correctly, was that there's no substantial purpose served by the road.
And my answer to that is, how do you know there is no substantial purpose served by the road? How do you know? Okay, that was my first comment.
We're at the time limit, so
Okay.
I'll give you a few more seconds since we
Okay,
did an exchange.
and-
Go ahead.
Also, I agree with the gentleman on the city council who said that the community of Jones, the Jones community, should have representation. How can a decision to close Riverside Drive, as monumental as it is, the idea is, how can a decision be made when the Jones community does not have representation?
It's going to have to end the public hearing, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Helen, what was your address again, ma'am?
My address is 2315 Mack Hill Drive. It's right off Highway 84,
Yes, ma'am.
west, going west towards Quitman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. I'm going to close out the public hearing portion of this item. We can't, the time is up. I'm now going to take the, turn this over to the council for action.
Mayor, before we take it over for action, I'd like to address a few things, if that's possible.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
I mean, is that not correct?
Once there's a motion in place, we ask for comments.
Okay. Well, then,
Mayor, I would like
I'll
to
make
make a motion that we deny the request to close the road.
Motion for denial. Any other motions?
I'd like to make,
Got a motion in a second.
Got a motion and a second for denial.
Discussion.
Open the floor for discussion. Council.
well, first of all, I'd like to address a few things as far as to the council and to the audience. This property situates in my district, so I do represent that district. And with that representation, I did discuss this with Pastor Morgan on the phone. I discussed with him. I don't know whether he told y'all that or not, but we had a great discussion, and we talked about everything. I also went further to discuss this with our new Assistant Chief Haynes, who lives out in that area or grew up in that area, of which he allowed me to know that he had this same discussion or kind of sort of talked to you also about understanding the situation with Pastor Morgan. And I believe you have your representative in the audience for the commissioner as well, unless they've changed it and now it's Mark, but I believe it was Commissioner Evans. So you do have representation. With that being said, when you're considering Pastor Morgan, when you called me up, your concern was the road closure and bringing too much traffic to Hunter McCormick, as far as that goes. If the road stays open and the subdivisions develop, and by the way, this is not the subdivision, this is just a mocked up drawing just to show us what they could pack into this district or this area. So at the end of the day, once fire gets a hold of this and police get a hold of it and all the other people get a hold of it, there's probably not going to be this many houses there. The retention ponds is probably going to be looking a little different. Things are going to be in different spots. Things are going to be shifted. So at the end of the day, this is just I almost kind of rather for them not even have this here because it's actually confusing a lot of folks. But at the end of the day, if they leave this road open and they were to build this subdivision, if I live on that, as I see here, my view, the right bottom corner, if I live anywhere in that area, I'm going out Hunter McCormick Drive every single time. And I'm going to come in Hunter McCormick Drive. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because that's my easiest access point. That's the easiest way to get through that. There's no reason to wind through a subdivision. So if you don't close that road, that's what's going to happen. So your fear of having more traffic down Hunter McCormick, it's going to happen. Your fear is going to come true because it will happen, because people are not going to go through that subdivision to hit James Road up there. They're going to go out the easiest route. Second is that if they shift this around like they're saying they're going to do, they're going to make the main entrance to where it comes together with James Circle. And the reason for that is so that the median does not play a part. That way they can come out and make the left or right turn and go north or south, however they feel like it. So they no longer have to go down and make a U-turn anymore, which is no concern, or it does not make a worry for the homeowner who spoke about Hunter McCormick, because now they don't have to worry about making that U-turn because they're going to adjust that accordingly. But as I was telling Pastor Morgan, when it comes to fire, which was his second thing he brought up, when it comes to fire, the safety of the fire, of which I talked to Chief Batwell about as well 2 days ago, who then talked to the state of Georgia's chief to confirm these things, is that fire or safety is the main concern here, and that we have to be concerned about safety, but at the same time, we also have to understand, too, that our fire department in the county, they're aware of the situation that if a fire breaks out at this point of you and I, Pastor, where we talked about those houses that you see in that bottom right-hand corner, your concern is how does the fire truck get to those houses? Well, in talking to two different chiefs, there's enough hoses in the way they run it and the way these trucks are set up that when they go there, they can reach those houses with extension of hoses. They have to. That's the law. They have to make sure that they can get to these houses. But at the same time, if your concern is about the radius of the turn, that is something that the county has to be concerned with, because it's their trucks that is being called to that scene. So they have to be able to make that left and right turn as well. And we talked about this. So I say all that because I want everybody to understand that I did what I was supposed to do. I called Pastor Morgan. I talked to the chief. I talked to different people. I talked to engineers. So it wasn't a matter of me just not doing my part of this, to make sure that everyone, that I hear from everyone. I want to make sure I heard from both sides, heard from everything. So I wanted to address that because I want to make sure that folks in the audience or whoever's listening doesn't think that I didn't represent this area or I didn't talk to others that represented this area. I spoke to the county as well, and I talked to them, as well about this. So there's been a lot of discussions on this. So I just wanted that to let everybody know that.
Any other council comments? We have a motion and a second for denial. All in favor, show of hands. 3. All in opposition, show of hands. 3. It comes to me for the tie-breaking vote. I vote in support of denial. Thank you. We'll move on to item 4. Please no. No. Move on to item 4, ordinances and resolutions. Consideration of an ordinance to establish the 2022 millage rate for the city of Valdosta. Mark Barber will again present.
Thank you. If you'd like me to go through my first presentation again, I will, but I'll be very brief with this. Again, as you know, we've had our 3 required hearings. I'm here tonight with the resolution before you asking you to approve a City of Valdosta millage rate to keep it the same at 7.796. Also,
Mark, if you want to pause till everybody gets up, I appreciate it. I'll take Chief.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mark, thank you.
all right. So what staff is asking the mayor and council tonight to do is to maintain the current millage rate of 7.796. Also, part of the resolution is, as you know, our CVDA downtown merchants. There's an additional 5 mills placed on them for the maintenance of downtown. So that's part of the ordinance. And you also, as part of our charter, have to approve the school board millage rate of 15.787. So in summary, 7.796 for the city of Valdosta, 5 mills for CVDA, and 15.787 mills for the school board. I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Council, any final questions? Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I'll turn it over to you for action.
Mr. Mayor, I make a request that we approve this request as stated by our city manager, Mr. Barber.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comments?
Question,
Please.
do we need to specify the other millage that we're adopting? Or just simply by as presented will work?
What other millage?
When I said request that we
School.
approve it,
The school and the downtown?
She said as presented by the city manager.
So that's good? Okay, all right.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor, show of hands. Council, thank you. Mark, thank you. And staff, thank you very much. Item B, consideration of an ordinance to amend the refuse collection and disposal ordinance. This will be first reading. Richard Hardy, our deputy city manager, will present.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. In early 2020, the Public Works Department conducted an audit of the entire recycling process. During that audit, we found that out of the 17,000 plus homes, only 21% of those homes actually recycle. Later on, in response to COVID-19, the city suspended all of the curbside recycling, and we set up mobile recycling collection centers throughout the city. During this time frame, looking at the actual amount of recycled material we collected doing the curbside and comparing it to the mobile sites, we found that on the curbside, we actually collected about 77 tons average per month. With the mobile sites, we're collecting about 84 tons monthly. Looking at all of this and moving forward, based off of the way we collect, based off the process, compared to both processes in terms of collection, the operability and sustainability looks in favor of us continuing with the mobile sites. The next item we had was we were looking at the way we do when we call in for our special pickups versus the bulk items. In the past, you would have to call in for a special pickup, and individuals would call in and say, hey, I live in address 1515, whatever street, and we took that information and we set up a route system that we picked up this material. The mayor and council approved the process where we would actually any citizen could put out as much as they wanted to, as long as it was less than 4 by 8 by 5, and the city would pick it up free of charge on your pickup date. So all of these things, items are collected and put in, and has been prepared and put into our ordinance. All of these items are outlined later on in the agenda items and outlined in the ordinance and highlighted. So moving forward, all of these items has been updated to reflect our current process. Standing by for any questions or concerns.
Any questions for Richard? Richard, thank you. Again, this is first reading. There'll be no action taken tonight. We'll move on to item 5, local funding and requests. Item A, consideration of a request to approve the local option sales tax loss certificate of distribution. Mark Barber, our city manager, to present.
Once again, thank you, Mayor. The ordinance you have before you this evening is one in which to determine the allocation of our local option sales tax on a 10-year basis. As we've discussed, every 10 years when the census is complete, the state requires a renegotiation of that distribution and that allocation. So that's what we'll be discussing. That's what we'll be discussing this evening. One thing that's different this year is that we had talked about, we all felt that it would be best just to keep the current allocations that we've had from the last 10 years, which is, we went through the same procedure, but some of these smaller cities, or actually all the smaller cities, according to the laws, the OCGA, as part of the loss regulations in the code, municipalities that are less than 50% of the municipal population are considered smaller, and they can claim what you call absentee municipality, meaning we're not coming to the table for renegotiation. All we want is our percent of allocation that represents our percent of the municipal population. So there's no negotiation on their part. Up front, we'd already decided we were not going to negotiate with Lowndes County. We're going to let them maintain their 58%. The city's got 42% that we have to divvy up. So all the change by bringing 49 that's not happened in the past is we have to recalculate how the 42% is prorated through the 5 cities. So as I said, each of these smaller cities have taken that, and they're absolutely right to do that. The basis, I think, for a lot of that is if, out of all of us, Hayhire grew percent-wise more than anybody. So if they had maintained at 1.42% that they're currently getting, well, they now represent 5.5% of municipal population. So it really wouldn't be a prudent decision on their part to do anything other than to claim absentee municipality. So that's the only difference. So before you tonight, this is the distribution we're asking for the cities. Valdosta will go from 38.63 to 37.45. Hayhire will go from 1.42% to 2.37. Remington will go from 0.74 to 0.93. Lake Park, 0.48 to 0.65. Dasher, they were in a similar situation to the city of Valdosta where our growth was stagnant, if you will. They were going to go from 0.73 to 0.6%. So they will get a lower distribution as well, just simply because of the calculation, because their population didn't grow enough to make a difference and meet the growth of the other smaller cities. We're in the same situation. I've had several meetings with several of you and explained that when you only grow, the census said we grew by 886 folks. That's really no growth. So perhaps it would grow more, population-wise, would have grown enough to be a bigger part of the percent, because now our percentage of municipal population has went from 90.4% to 89.1%. So that's the reason for the shift. The smaller cities did exactly what I would have done sitting in their shoes. So that's the only difference this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Barber.
Yes, sir.
Just based on calculations, we're figuring this will take about $300,000 a year or $3 million over the 10-year life.
That's the estimate. That's right, Councilman Carroll. Myself and the finance director, we did like a 10-year projection based on the trajectory of the loss now. That is our best estimate. There is a lot of concern. I think the first 2-3 years will be okay. It's something we can manage here at the city. But past that, with the economy, I think when that plunges, of course, you're going to see a change in that. And that's when we're really going to see that first hit for us as far as our distribution going down 1.18%. Absolutely, great question.
And so we're all clear and understand this is money that goes directly into our general fund.
That's right. Just as with property tax we spoke of earlier, local option sales tax is our other big generator. Absolutely.
Council, any further questions for Mark?
I just want to say thank you how you brought us in and explained it to us so that we will be able to understand it before you represent it today. Thank you so much, sir, for what you did.
Thank you.
What I want to say too, thank you, and I got a lot of understanding from that. I had a lot of questions. And one thing I want to ask though, with this being, I our percentage decrease, will, like, if for special projects that we might want to do something like that, will we have to go up on our sales tax or anything?
No, ma'am. Pretty much we're locked into this for 10 years. Now, there are some special cases. Let's say, number one, we say we don't agree with the results of the census. And we go through that process of protesting and all that, and we found out there's a 8,000 population mistake. That would warrant maybe coming back and trying to address the situation, but to answer your question, that's what I'm saying. I think in that third year is where we're going to feel perhaps if there's a severe drop, because right now all I can do is bank on volume to keep us where we are. We'll never close that gap of the 1.18% that we're not receiving now, but if it's high enough, at least we can maybe maintain dollar-wise.
All right, one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a particular percentage rate, like if you can't have gotten more than, or we couldn't have dropped more than maybe 2 or 3% or something like that? Is it a number figure or a percentage rate?
No, it's just the pure calculation, the municipal calculations of how the population shifted, absolutely.
Okay.
And as I told you when we first began to discuss this process, I ran a report from the Department of Community Affairs just to see unincorporated counties and cities, how the percent, and we're pretty much in line with what other folks around the state are, to be quite honest with you. Even though we had to rearrange ours, and I'm not standing here to tell you like rearranging ours, but it's what is required, and it's doable, and we'll make sure to manage it.
Council, any further questions for Mark? Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, it's yours for action.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adopt the loss distribution as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, show of hands. All in opposition, same sign. Motion passes. Council, thank you. We'll move on now to the citizens to be heard portion of the evening. Again, we ask that you come forward and state your name and address so we can have it for the record. Our policy requires you stay under 3 minutes so that others have a chance to be heard. Please direct all comments to council as a whole. Do not attempt to engage individual members of council in debate. It is council's policy to follow through with you on your concern. Additionally, we ask any group that wants to address the council designate one spokesperson. Again, that'll ensure that others have time to be heard. Having said that, welcome to the podium.
Mayor, Thomas Henderson III, 4122 Amberley Trail. Mr. Mayor, when you matter to someone, that person will always make time for you. No excuses, no lies, no broken promises. I petition you for 3 minutes and 60 seconds to reflect on the momentous decision the city manager and the city council made last week in regards to aid in various businesses, organizations, etc.
Begin.
Thank you. To my friend, a community is not just about being geographical close to someone, a part of the same social web network. It's about feeling connected and responsible for what happens. Humanity is our ultimate community, and everyone plays a crucial role. And finally, no man can become rich without himself encircling others. I want to commend you, City Council, for aiding various organizations and businesses in this city. I think it's a great decision. I think it's on time. I think we needed this. And finally, just for clarity, I would like to know how was those recipients chosen and how did they find out about the information?
for that answer. Somebody will follow up with you after the council meeting. Thank you. It was our honor, by the way. Are any other citizens to be heard at this time? Nobody else coming forward? We'll turn it over to Mark Barber once again for the city manager's report. Been the star tonight.
I will be extremely brief. I just would be remiss if I don't congratulate Brandy Dane and Allie for a wonderful job they did Saturday at the Unity Park opening. I think they're here. They've been representing Valdosta to downtown Main Street. They have done a tremendous job. And just to kind of update you, Brandy is still on her probationary period with the city, so within 6 months, she put together that great celebration. She's added 3 new events downtown and continues to be that little Energizer bunny. I got to tell her sometimes I can't have more than a 5-minute meeting because I'm exhausted when she's out of my office. But that was a wonderful event, and we appreciate everybody who came out and always appreciate you guys' support in a project like this. So again, thank you very much.
And Brandy, Catherine and I met yesterday to add another event to your calendar. She can handle it, she says. Council comments? Any comments before we wrap up tonight?
I want
Let me go first.
Ms.
She ain't going first tonight, sir.
Hello, Mayor
I
Pro
just
Tem.
wanted to say, I am so honored to see so many citizens out in our audience tonight, and I want to again salute Mr. Bill Slaughter and the county commissioners for coming out to be a part of our meeting this evening. It was an honor to see you all sitting out. And from myself, District 1, as I always said, and Councilman Vickers always said, the city of Valdosta, we thank everyone for coming out this evening.
Ms. Tooley.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say I thank you for the county commissioners for coming out, because every time I come to their meeting, they thank me. So I thank you, too. And also, I got to say, I'm just going to give my raves about our opening of the Unity Park. It was awesome. It was, to me, it felt real good, enlightening. So many people had so many wonderful things to show, and it seemed to represent a lot of different people, all ages as well. And I want y'all to know that's just the beginning. Unity Park is really, it's got a lot of potential. A lot is going to be happening. We want everybody to be a part of it, share it, come by sometime when you're walking, sit in it, just enjoy yourself. But that is, that right now, one of Valdosta, when I want to say A+, okay?
Well,
I love it, and the citizens love it too, so I'm with my citizens. If they love it, I love it. Thank y'all.
Councilwoman, thank you. Council, any further comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.